happy July. This is going to be a bookshelf. Nothing exciting is happening, Dakota. It's a sunny Sunday, so naturally I am indoors with my books. I don't know why I'm wearing this sweatshirt. It's so hot. It's basically Lowe's now anyway. And we're gonna do a bookshelf. I don't like how grandiose the word tour sounds, but that's what this is, so too darn bad. Here's the deal. We're gonna start big picture, macro, work our way down to the discipline and the practice of reading an individual book. That's the dog lying down on my cute new, this is funny, it feels like a stage because you can't see the gray chair, which is here, so I'm like blocked in. And I'm hoping the wood is not too creaky. Okay, so far so good, I guess, because this isn't somewhere people really walk. Maybe it's not as creaky. Okay, first up, these are my books. Largely they are organized by genre. We will get to that in a few seconds, but first, what books are not here? My TBR. So if I haven't read a book, this is almost always true, it goes on my 2 TBR shelves, which you don't get to see because I don't like the internet being in my home. So you just get this one backdrop shot. That's it. Be grateful. But I know all of you, so when you come over, you can see my TBR, and it's over there. I have nonfiction here and fiction here. I go through fiction a lot faster because it's quicker to read. I have closet books, which is books that I've read that I didn't love, and those are in my closet. And above my bed, the first time that, maybe when it was my 28th birthday, so almost 2 years ago, I had to clear my shelves off for the first time to make more room. Until then, I had plenty of room on these shelves because I was young and I hadn't read that many books. And so I took off all my faves and I organized them by color, which I consider an insult to the book. Personally, I don't mind when other people do their books by color, but we'll get to that. And I had imagined, anyway, they're hanging all cute in there, and then soon after, every time that I had to put more books on my shelf, I had to take books off, and hence the closet stacks of books, hence why Happy Place or Iron Flame are no longer on the shelves. Because I write, I see these as an external hard drive of the way that the things that I have learned. I hope that's also true for people who don't write but think, which hopefully is very many 100% of us. But we are not going to be generalizing today. This is just going to be my little opinions. So these are the ones that largely I find worthy in that they're well written, or I will want to reference something about them, or they are phenomenal and I adore them. There's a couple books on here that are here, like reference books, for example. I haven't read every single word of these. My Dickens collection. I was proud last year just to finish this one, so cheers to that. And that's most of the books in my apartment. No. Our friends are through the portal of the internet right now. No one's coming over. No waiting for the puppy. It is already warm in here. Summer, man. In the winter, take me back. Not really though, because I haven't been to Lake Michigan yet. The couple other sections, I guess, are books I'm currently reading, which I try to set all around the apartment. I found that's one of the things that keeps me reading the most, is if anywhere I'm gonna be, I'll be seeing my book sitting next to it, passing it when I'm walking or whatever. So I have the books that I'm reading everywhere, and I keep little pencils in secret places. Can you find the one on here for when I sit here? Oh my goodness, look, you found it. I like to have pencils everywhere because then I don't have to get up when I'm reading and I need to mark something profound. I have a couple of cookbooks and baking books. I don't like to have a lot of them because, and I guess this is sort of reflected as I'm saying this in my only wanting to have books that I've read at all. Like, I don't want to have 18 cookbooks and have made like 0 recipes for most of them, or 1 recipe from all of them. So I'm very diligently working through my Sarah Kiefer book, which I'm gonna go get for you. This is my favorite cookbook, baking book of all time, and it is the only one that I need in my whole life. Not quite true, but mostly true. And I've been baking through it devotedly since I gave it to Megan 5 years ago. So I think that gets to one of my main beliefs about books, which is that another section of books I have is the books that I've finished so far that month, and I keep those in a pile on top of the hutch. And then I do the video, and then at the end of that, I shelve them here. I shelve them in the closet, or I like ballet form, or I put them in a little free library or give them away to someone. Let's get to this. I have zoomed out today for only the second time ever, so you can see all of the books on all the shelves. It sort of is sad to me that most times we're hanging out, you can't see fiction because it's too high up there, and fiction is amazing. It matters a lot. So, like I said, this is fiction, and I, within the genre, organize the books according to theme and idea. So I find it really fun at the end of the month to put the books where they belong on the shelf. I videoed that, so maybe I'll put it right here so you can watch me do it. Or maybe I'll put it later, who knows. So that's how I decide where the books go. And it's a really fun part of the process for me because I care about the ideas that I read, and I love seeing how they interact with other ideas and other themes and how they fit with other books that I've read. So it's really special and fun to do that part of it, of seeing where a book fits in the larger library, not just putting it on the shelf, but finding where it belongs. This is my books about writing and my literary theory section. I have my favorite book about writing in the Hall of Fame, but like many books in the Hall of Fame, it's not necessarily comprehensively top to bottom my favorite book, especially earlier books. This one's chronological. I'm getting out of order. But the chapter 2 and 3 in this, Clutter and Simplicity, changed my writing completely and are the best little write-ups of, I don't know, I think in life you don't get to improve quickly very often, and reading that book was one of the times I could feel myself get better at writing in a very short period of time. So in here there's some good ones. We're not talking about the individual books today, so sorry guys, I love you. This is my YA section. I have Disney High here, which I felt when I put that up there, like that's exactly where that book goes, and that was a really fun placement because that one's nonfiction, so you would think nonfiction, but it belonged here. And I've got the new Hunger Games printing, and then I've got my Charles Dickens. This is from a used bookstore close to my parents' house in Tulsa, and I loved A Tale of Two Cities when I was in, I almost said undergrad instead of high school. Those are different. This is my high school copy, actually. And so one time we were at Imagery, look at it, with little shining lines around it. I love Charles Dickens because I love that book, and so my mom got me these for my 16th or 17th birthday maybe. There's more behind here. They used to all get displayed, but again, we are economizing here. The floor is squeaky right here, so I have to stand very still. Right here is my Betsy Tacy special interest section. So there's 2 commentary books about the world of Betsy Tacy, both of which I haven't read every word of, partially because that's really long and partially because I haven't finished the last one. I'm like saving it, so I didn't want it to be spoiled. And then, oh, I need the ladder. I have 2, no, do not speak while you're doing things, one or the other. Oh, this is so fun. I've wanted to show you guys this for a while. So I love the Betsy Tacy books. The author of them, and they're right here, this is the favorite shelf situation. The author of them wrote 4, I think, historical fiction novels before she started writing these, which are largely for children, and they're about her own life. And this is one of her historical fiction novels. I wanted to read it, so I bought it online. And because it's a super niche interest, this is a really early edition. It's also an early edition because it's not in print anymore. So this is the only one you can get if you're gonna get it. And it was so totally fine. It's fun to read her earlier stuff. There was a sentence in this one that she revamped, is one of my favorite sentences in one of the Betsy Tacy books, which was so cool. It was just like when, niche, bear with me. Actually though, hang on. This is so funny. Okay, we will get to the records later on the tour, but how funny. You know I love a physical example of things. Thank you, Megan. For example, in her 4th studio album, Red, Taylor Swift wrote a masterful song called All Too Well that featured a line, casually cruel in the name of being honest. Phenomenal, great placement in the song. Years later, when she released her Taylor's version in an attempt to devalue her original recordings and regain control of them, she released songs that she had not released the first time around for this first Grammy Album of the Year winning album, one of which was called Mr. Perfectly Fine, and it had the line casually cruel in it, much less cleverly and effectively. And it was really cool to get to see her keep something back that was not as great and use it later. Same thing happened to Maud Hart Lovelace, who, by the way, has very many similarities to Taylor Swift and will have to be featured in my book recommendations for Taylor Swift video that will happen one of these days. Let's just do the records while we're here. These are the records. One time when we were friends with our upstairs neighbor, I was upstairs and I had the music on, and it was so loud that ever since that day, probably 5.5 years ago, I have not used this record player. It is decorative, and I think about moving it because it also takes up, look at this, space, space, space. I like, and when I designed these shelves, very specifically wanted some breaks, but we're running low on space. This is very not utilized because I don't use the player, as I have said. I also, first of all, would love to change out these records sometime, but I rigged up a very complex hack job with galvanized steel wire and reusable chopsticks that does not allow me to change the records out ever. Now, Japanese Breakfast and Kendrick are great patron saints of the bookshelf, but this one is getting crooked, so anyway. Now, if you've ever wondered, look how cool, they're on display, but why don't they move? That's the answer. I also have this secured with galvanized steel wire. I could use that for anything, but that's not what we're talking about right now. I would like to also say that I know that you are not supposed to store your records stacked on top of each other because it's bad for them. So one of the next times I'm in Oklahoma, my dad and I are going to make this shaped record situation like one is supposed to do. But then like that doesn't look good right here, so then I'll have to rework the whole thing and figure it out. So just another person who got into records and got right back out of them. And thank you, Urban Outfitters. My other Maud Hart Lovelace book is right here. And I keep it in a Ziploc bag because it's very important to me, even though that looks super goofy. But this is Early Candlelight, which is one of Maud's earlier books as well, and it's inscribed. And I'll show you. To dear Glenn and Edith Townsend, saying thanks for our visit to Fort Snelling, our something to Pilot Knob and the picnics in the Minnesota River, on the Minnesota River, with love from... Guys, this is why your favorite author should be a really niche writer, because this was not even thousands of dollars. It wasn't even $200. And it was a gift from my mom, and I love it so much. Our rides to Pilot Knob. And I don't know what I was supposed to say about it, but it came up on eBay a couple of years ago, and like I said, my mom got it for me for my birthday, and I did read it. I actually read it. It is really wild. Both of this one and that one, like the actual content and themes were like very... In this one, their main character is a woman who goes to France to flee the American Civil War and to advocate for the Confederacy to the French court. Yeah, and in this one, it's like an age gap story. The guy's like 30 and the girl's like 11. And then by the end of the book, they get together, so. But it not only is signed but inscribed, and not only that, but it turns out, once I read the book, I realized that the thanks that she's giving to that couple is because they let her stay with them, and they live where she set this book. So she stayed with them, while not just like, it's not like she just inscribed to random friends. They helped her when she was doing her research, and I feel like I'm just stumbling over my words, but I do not draft notes for these, so that's how it goes. You just get my first and only draft. Please hold. So we will talk about the Betsy Tacy books more when we get to this shelf. Also, one day I will get a better thing for this, and also probably one that protects it from the sun, because that's one of the big things with books is sun damage. But for now, long story, and I swear it was longer in my life because I paused for like 30 minutes. That's the Betsy Tacy section. And the reason, I didn't say this, but the reason the Deep Valley reference books are cool is because Maud wrote the books about her own life. So they go through a ton of historical research, and then they line up photos with illustrations from the book, or people who were in the real world who are characters in the books, and they have all of their pictures and stuff. So that's special. This is the Christian section. I think there's it takes a lot for me to like a Christian book that is like overtly Christian-y. And so this is a small section. Philip Yancey just got taken down because of his scandal. Yeah. I'm picky. And you don't have to be. You can read whatever you want. Okay, next, randomly right here is the Complete Chronicles of Narnia, printed in this giant edition that I guess someone gave me when I was a kid. But besides that, this is my Flannery O'Connor special topic section. So I wrote my senior thesis in high school on her. I have a couple of research books that I barely got into. They would have been helpful. I didn't have the skill of like kind of going into a book for 4 hours and pulling only what's going to be useful. I didn't know how to do that versus just reading straight through, and I didn't have time to read through them. I might come back to this one, but of the ones up top, I have 2 copies of Mystery of Manners, because when I bought it for my thesis, I got this copy, and then I wanted the one that matches her other design. I really adore Missionary Manners. It's collected essays, so it's nonfiction by her, even though she's known for her fiction, for short stories. It was in the Hall of Fame for a long time. And then this is A Good Man is Hard to Find, and my thesis advisor, Will Phillips, got it for me. I don't remember if it was after I won or just because he was kind. Hang on. Look at this note. Maddie, it has been a great privilege to have been one of your teachers at Regent. So, okay. Anyway, so Will Phillips got me this copy, which I love. It's precious to me. Next up is selected special genres. So I have my Shakespeare over here, graphic novels, and poetry. Kind of embarrassing that they only take up this much space, except I don't actually believe people should be embarrassed about anything about their bookshelves. But I have the randomest Shakespeare because I kind of just have what I was told to get for school. But I don't have any of the comedies, so I don't know what format I read those in. I love a couple of these graphic novels. I got these at Read Books, which is in Birmingham, Alabama, downtown. It's a really magical used bookstore, and it's a selection of Shakespeare. And then an old copy of Hamlet and an old copy of Don Quixote from like the ancestors. So this book is very, very old, and I would say, based on what I learned from Jane Austen's bookshelf, probably not very valuable because it is in very poor condition, but valuable to me. The next section is coffee table books. Why Design Matters by Debbie Millman. I do want to read this one eventually. It's interviews and stuff. 2 books about Paris, which I adore in high school and still kind of adore. Black Futures, 99% Invisible City, which I read the whole thing of. That one is phenomenal. They actually are going to do an updated version of it. So if you listen to the podcast or if you love urban design and planning, it's a fantastic podcast and book. Black Wall Street, I actually got this in San Francisco last May. I think the illustrator is from San Francisco, but it's about Tulsa. Sad Animal Facts, this book is so funny. It's exactly what it sounds like. Flow, The Cultural Story of Menstruation. This one was so annoyingly written. I thought I was going to want to read the whole thing, and I didn't, but it has the craziest like ad copy from the last like 300 years of women's magazines and how they put things in magazines back when you could get in trouble for like using real words about anything, and the ads are crazy. And also just the development of different period products and stuff. It was really interesting to kind of page through. Sharpie Art Workshop. Oh, this is a Ralph Ellison photography book. He is Oklahoma's most prestigious author. He wrote The Invisible Man. I have Shadow and Act, his essay collection right here. He was also a photographer, and he was friends with Gordon Parks, who's a really famous Black photographer. So, love that book. This is a Fellows, it's spiral bound, so I have it turned around backwards. I think it's like the Reformation text from one of my classes. A photo book from Taylor Swift's Reputation album. I don't know why I have that. Probably it was a gift. And the first 3 episodes or copies of Citizen, which is a great sort of coffee table magazine type book. Then I have this vase that my mom got me with wrapping ribbons from gifts people have given me, and this little toy that my dad and I made on the lake with cocoa wood, I think. And this and this are from Ruthie and Salome. This Last Supper holographic with metal frame. It was featured in my last Substack in its original form at the Galena thrift store. If you want to see more religious art in metal frames with light bulbs, I think it's hilarious. It's like the sacred and the silly together, and I love how it looks behind my Hall of Fame. Yeah, it's like the only piece of art that I've ever bought. It was, I think, $48, but I love it. It's also the night light. Like, at night I turn these two lamps off and that one stays on. So the lamp is from Target. That's not interesting. This is a picture of Sully. We'll do this shelf next. But now I'm on like the random stuff situation. This is the peanut M&M jar. It's a beautiful gift because I love Kinkos and butterflies. And it's unclear how long these have been in here, so eat at your own risk, but if you come over, they are available to you. This is from a museum in Vienna, and it's where I keep my lens wipes for cleaning my phone. But also, it's beautiful. It's Klimt. I don't really know my artists, but I can read that off the bottom of this. And maybe you know more about Klimt than I do. This box we talked about in another video. It is a cigar box from my great-grandfather, my step-great-grandfather's store in Foster's Corner Drug in Perry, Oklahoma. They are now 5 cents. And I keep my flashcards in there, the things that I want to learn. This little star is from Ruby Pritchard. I saw a picture of one that she made when she did felt crafts for her school project, and I was like, I have to have one of those, and it's the best. It's so cute. Everyone loves it who comes over. This box was my great-grandmother's, so Nana's mom, and I already talked about how these speakers are just taking up space. Is that all the fun things? Yeah. Oh no, this section. But as I get more books, I have to take more picture frames off. Really, I like to have maybe 2 or 3 more, probably 3 more picture frames up here. We've got Betsy and Dakota over on this edge. And then this is a picture of the sunrise on our street. The frame is from World Market. This is art that I bought on the sidewalk. 2 or 3 little girls in my neighborhood were selling art, and I did that too when I was a kid, so I bought it. This one was $1, and this one is $4 or $3. And you can't tell, but it's mixed media. There's also yarn and Scotch tape in addition to marker. So I framed those, and I think they're cute. I also like to imagine them walking past and like looking up and seeing that, which probably, who knows, probably won't happen. Lamps, this lamp is from Walmart. It's crooked permanently, so I at least have it be crooked forward in hopes people won't see it. I did that little painting in the back, and then this I bought at what's on Second, which was a kind of a junk shop antique store on Second until it moved in Birmingham, Alabama, and I negotiated for this and this sewing drawer board thing and some postcards, and like I proposed a price and then he proposed a price, and then I was like, well, let's do this for this, this for this, and this for these, and he was like, okay. But it was the same price that I had said earlier that he had rejected, so I was elated. But also I didn't realize that until I did the math later in my head, so we'll take it as a victory. But anyway, that candle has been on there forever, by the way. It matches and I don't burn it, so who knows where this has lived before. Is that everything that's like a little bit of a pause, interesting-y? This is where I keep photos and bookmarks. I don't use the bookmarks, I collect them. I only use gross grain ribbon. This is what I always use for a bookmark. I have a bunch of them. I love that it can't get wrinkled if I have it fall out when I'm in bed, and then I sleep on it and it doesn't. It's just the best bookmark in my opinion, is a piece of ribbon. So there you have it. Okay. I feel like we have lost the plot. I feel like I have been talking rather nonsense, but I have been alone all day, and that's sometimes how it goes. We finished this shelf, yes. Okay. We don't have that much left. Let's do this shelf. This is all my favorites. My favorite kids series that I believe are not limited by the fact that they're kids. Everyone should read them. The Mysterious Benedict Society. It has 4 books, a prequel, and a puzzle book. The prequel is an astounding book. They're all so good. One of my favorite Substack articles I wrote really early on was about this book. So you can find that if you so desire. These are the Pinderwicks. I love the Pinderwicks. I didn't know the 5th one came out until Caroline told me. It was recent, and this is a perfect series. They're so good. They're about sisters, and they're set in New England, and there's just like, they're so good. And then the Betsy Tacy books, which I already talked about, and you guys, I was so worried they were gonna go to print. I have 2 sets of them, just right in front of one in front of the other on here. So Maud Hart Lovelace was a writer in Minnesota, and she had a daughter, and she started telling her daughter bedtime stories about when she was a little kid. And she'd already written some historical fiction alone and with her husband Dallas, and someone proposed that she turn those stories into books. That became the book set that she is still known for today. If you meet someone who knows these books, they love them. Because I work at the shop, I get to experience that sometimes, and it's just the best thing ever. The Treasury I found in 6th grade at the library. We had a hardcover copy of it, so it looked like a brick. It was huge. And I read the whole thing, and I was like, I read the whole thing. And I read it every year from then on out, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And at some point in high school, I found out that they kept going and they had college books, or high school books, sorry. So these books age up with the reader. It starts on the eve of Betsy's 5th birthday, and there's 4 books in the Treasury, and it takes them through the end of middle school. They live in Mankato, is the real town in Minnesota. She calls it Deep Valley, at the turn of the 20th century. So 1898 to 1910 is when they graduate high school. So the high school books are so good. They're so good. They're all so good, and I love them so much. This book, Heaven to Betsy, came out 1 or 2 years before A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. So I always say it's considered the first YA novel ever published. That's a little iffy because, firsts are hard to track, and also I just say it because I'm trying to get people to buy this book, and it is true for the most part, if that makes sense, because what people say is that A Tree Grows in Brooklyn was the first YA book. I know and love this one, and it came out earlier, so that's what I say on, but I adore these books. They were the closest approximation to my experience of high school that I ever read in a book, and also they're just perfect. And Gia Tolentino talks about Betsy super briefly in Trick Mirror, which is so fun. This is a Hall of Fame. I think I talked about them a lot in my Best Books I've Read Since College video. These are the books that have changed me, and some books roll off the Hall of Fame, and I'm having to figure that out more recently because some of them have been moved to a new home in this section, the genre section, but some of the ones, especially the ones over here that aren't that great, I still like to see them at the leftmost side of this, what is the timeline, because these are the books that really changed me when I was 19 and 20 and 23, etc. So the standard to get into the Hall of Fame is a lot higher now. It has to be a perfectly excellent book, which I would say is not true of some of the ones down on that side. And it has to hit me, it has to really, really matter to me, which is usually the difference between a 4-star book and a 5-star book, right? If you have an emotional response to a book, or if it just is something that you just want to wrap your arms around, then it's going to be a 5-star. That's what is most likely to get it onto here. Also, if it overlaps with things that I'm already writing and thinking about, that helps a lot. So I would say through here, probably this is 2015 through 2020. Actually, I could just tell you because I date the books. July 2020. And then the most recent one was the Rebecca Solnit book and A Fever in the Heartland. We've actually had 2 or 3. I average about 3 books into the Hall of Fame per year. Some of them don't go straight to the Hall of Fame. So Shadow and Act by Ralph Ellison. I only moved here once I did my birthday display based on that book last August. And James Baldwin, The Fire Next Time, I moved in. I can't remember if it was when I was working on an article and using it or when I did Caroline's graduation present with one of the pages from that. But yeah, there's not as much fiction in the Hall of Fame as there is nonfiction. It's just To the Lighthouse, A Raisin in the Sun, The Watsons Go to Birmingham, and The Color Purple, I think. Yeah. But I also used to have a favorite fiction section. So it had Salvage Bones, Demon Copperhead, Rabbit Hutch, about 6-ish books in that section. I've since collapsed those into fiction, but I go back and forth. Like I could go either way on that. I love letting them be set apart and special and having the books that are my favorite next to each other. But also I like them being next to books that matter. So getting to have the Rabbit Hutch be next to Fight Night and by Who Will Run the Frog Hospital, which it wouldn't be if it was in favorite fiction. I love that. Same with Demon Copperhead, for example. Having it next to Dominion, which is set in Mississippi. Demon Copperhead's set in the edge of Virginia and Tennessee. And then next to Fried Green Tomatoes, which is set in Alabama. And all of those books are about really specific communities and then growing up in those communities. I like having those next to each other. So maybe we will have favorite fiction again one day. For now, the Hall of Fame. I also, I moved Trick Mirror out earlier, maybe last month, and then I put it back because it felt so wrong to not have it there. Partially because it's colorful, and there's a lot of less colorful ones, which was great when Enough Said was up there too. And there was another really bright book that was in here for a while. Anyway, am I saying anything interesting anymore? No. Would it be interesting to walk through the different themes in those books and see which ones interact together? Yes, it would be so cool. How many of them are essay collections? How many of them are about poverty or gendered violence or how we build and shape our communities and our attention? So maybe one day, move on. For now, this is my nonfiction section, and then it loops down to right there. I have sort of I wonder if I can say the themes quickly. The structure of the world we have. No, that's too big. So that's Invisible Women, Data Bias, No World Design for Men, Grocery about groceries, Pay Paradise about parking. All the books about the ways that we have our cities. Then we get into division of labor in the home and parenting, into neurodivergence and disability, into Christian-y books that earned a spot in nonfiction, which is sort of a badge of honor, into specific essays or specific topical books. For example, Go Ahead in the Rain, which is about a tribe called Quest. High Heel, which is about high heels. Fear and Clothing, which is about clothes in different regions in America. So really specific writing. And then into a little bit of pop culture with Cue the Sun and some media history with The Library Book, which is Susan Orlean next to her memoir. The Bookshop, which is a history of the American bookshop. I'm getting too zoomed in. Then we go into some books about racism and specific different parts of our country. So mass incarceration, voting, thick, covers a little bit of everything. subprime mortgage scandal in Brooklyn that happened in the 70s. Then we get into more of that violence against specific people groups, including Native Americans with Killers of the Flower Moon, or specific neighborhoods like the South Side. Speed up, sorry. Then essay collections, really smart folks. Then the Roxane Gay Special Focus section, which is also essay collections, really smart person. Then into, this is kind of a woo-woo health-ish section. So books about like inherited trauma where there's not a lot of solid research, and so that's a fact. Then into books about the body, so this is body grief, and then books about fat phobia and beauty culture. We are moving into memoirs of violence, memoirs of illness, and this isn't just a memoir section, but a lot of these books cover the same themes, and so they effectively kind of made a memoir section. That's how nonfiction is organized. So I love shelving a book and figuring out where it wants to be next to. A couple of them are really fun when you find where it should go, where it should belong. I believe that like when you finish a book, when you read a book, you make it alive in a specific way, which is why I like to buy a book before I read it. Which again, I feel so silly about, but also I work at a bookstore, so it's not that expensive. And so one example of a book that's like doesn't fit that is I borrowed Lowe, I think's copy of A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then I thought it was great, and I read The Hunger Games, and then they had this one that matched. It bothers me a little bit that this is not the actual copy of Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes that I read, which doesn't have to be true for everyone, but that is true for me. So I really, like, if Megan loans me a book, like, if she owns the book, and we both want to read it, and then I read it first, she knows she will let me have it, and then I will get her a new blank copy. Like, I don't want to just buy it for myself. I want the one that like I held and I read. I don't write in books a lot. We'll talk more about that in a second, but I love my books to, I want them to be next to books they belong with. That matters to me. And I think it matters to them too. Moving on. These are the best American food writing collections. I'm only missing one. The very first one was in 2018. I read it every single year and I love it. This is favorite series, the Deadly Education trilogy, and then the Emma M. Lyon series. Perfection. A Spare Bible, picture books, and then my Vivian Mayer coffee table book. Pat was my bunny growing up, and so I have Pat the Bunny, the book. It smells exactly like it did 28 years ago. I have the book Casey made me about our friendship, and then some treasured books from when I was a kid. This is the one about Alcatraz and breaking out, and this is one about amazing. Anyway, I got a set of the Kit books at Bookies down in Beverly. She was my favorite. And then some of these are from when I was a kid. Most of them I have acquired and read. These are kind of the best. These are my faves. There's a decent number of middle grade and elementary books in the closet. But also I like to have a lot of kids' books out. More coffee table books, sneakers, ballet, dresses, Taylor Swift, fairy parties, and a Taylor Swift lover CD journal situation. And then this book that someone got me at the Regent book sale. One more section. And then we're going to talk all about how I read books. I think you can see me if I do this, so I'm going to do this. This is my great books section. This traces the syllabus, plural, syllabi, of high school and my college classes in the fellows program at Stanford. And so I have it balanced between thinking through the thoughts of Western history and then so chronologically, and then also having my Penguin classics together, for example. So the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, no surprise there. And then moving through Locke and Hobbes, got our Rule of Benedict, and then Tarnas, which is hilarious. This guy wrote a really great overview of the Western intellectual tradition, and it's so hard to read. So yeah, they would assign that in fellows, and we would all be like, this is where I have Gatsby. This is where I have a couple of poli-sci books and a couple of books from the incredible science class I took with Dr. Dobbins. I have a George Herbert poetry collection that Ethan got me and wrote me the sweetest note. I was his preceptor my senior year, his freshman year, and he was like, I noticed that you had John Donne, and so I got you the George Herbert that matches, which is the best thing ever. And then Penguin Classics acquired, starting in high school, I guess, like we saw with The Tale of Two Cities. This is probably the longest book I've ever read, Count of Monte Cristo. Some of them are newer. Portable Anna Julia Cooper, we talked about that one. And then I have my 3 Jane Austen together, which is why this Everyman's Library isn't by the 2 poets. So it goes Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense and Sensibility. And then it goes into Evelina, which we talked about when we talked about Jane Austen's bookshelf earlier in the month, or last month, or whenever. And that goes into the Oxford Classics. Then it goes into the Barnes & Noble Classics. And so I like those being next to ones they look like. And then this becomes classics that I've read since college, because I do have to make myself read them, and sometimes they'll go in here. So I have my Toni Morrison books are in fiction, but most of the time I'll keep, for example, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Passing, Giovanni's Room. Usually they'll go in this classics section. Then I have my white notebook that you see all the time, which is for books that I don't have in my library, that I don't want in my library usually, but also for whatever reason. So before I got my own Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, I wrote my review of it in here. And also, if I get rid of a book that I don't like, I will cut out my review from the back and I will keep it, and I'll write what book it was on here. So, you know, they're a writer when they like obsessively collect everything they've ever taken any time to think about and write down. And then I have my anthologies, which I've loved having lower down. They were on the top shelf for a long time, but an anthology is really cool resource and a cool way to, basically, one of the interests that one of them said, like, you have a whole library if you have one anthology. And it's special to be able to see the shape of thought and to get to read little write-ups about each person and how they relate to the previous writer in the anthology and all that kind of thing. So I like having those. 3 of them are from British literature, and that huge one on top is my American Lit anthology. This is a blanket basket that my mom helped me find because it's exactly the right height to hide the cords. It's kind of not. I mean, no, it's exactly the right height. It's low on blankets right now, so it's not hiding them today. Okay, that's the bookshelf tour. I want to say again that I really believe books are, like, bookshelves are individual to the person who assembles them, and that there's no wrong way to put together your bookshelf at all. If you love your books color-coded, I get it. It looks amazing. If you get rid of books and you don't believe in keeping them, that's fine. Dakota doesn't agree, but I can be gracious in that way. Hey baby, hey baby. They can't see you, so this is pretty funny. Sometimes I'll see things on the internet that's like, how many books do you have a library? And I think that's like the dumbest, rudest, most ridiculous thing. I wrote a Substack article called Numbers Don't Measure Anything, and or it was called something like that. But basically, I think there's a lot of things we ascribe numbers to that is just a dumb waste of time. And counting books is definitely one of those things. So I love my books, and I think it's interesting to hear how people organize their books or engage with this object that is so valuable and like contains so much more inside of it than it does on the outside, which is one of the things that makes spending money on books such a long-term thing, because it's just like there's always more there if you're lucky to find a good one. I think that people think harder. Well, this is probably generalizable. People think harder about themselves than anybody else thinks about them. But sometimes I'll be reading like a Substacker and they'll be like, I've never done anything like this before, so tell me if you hate it. And like, as someone who just reads them as one of 100 other things that I read, it doesn't feel that different or interesting to me. So there's a party that's going to be like, I don't know what this video was like at all. But like, actually, I'm in front of the same thing talking to the camera still, so it's probably not that different from other things. But if you have a really strong opinion about it, text me. That'd be kind of weird, but not weird to text me about video. That's always fun. Weird if this incited a strong opinion in you. That's the story. Oh, the other thing that I didn't say is this is the home phone spot. So whenever I'm home, this is where my phone goes. And then there's my AirPods stay back there. I do think it's important to like only have one spot where you let your phone be. And so I try to do that, and like only I have to go get my phone if I want to use it. And that contrasts with what I was saying about how if I'm reading a book, I leave all my books all over the house so that they are there for me. Wrap it up. Ta-da! Tell me you have no charisma. Okay, we're done.